In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Almighty, the Lord of the worlds. May Allah's peace, mercy and blessings be upon His final and last messenger, Muhammad. And may Allah's peace, mercy and blessings be upon each and every one of you, dear viewers, watching this new episode of your program, The Revelation. So far, we have been discussing the most important and the most distinguishing features of Al-Azhar's academic approach and scientific methodology. And so far, we have discussed the importance of spending a lengthy time and a lengthy portion of time in the company of the scholars and the ulama. And that's to attain the merit of isnad, when it comes to the narration, the cognitive understanding, and also the spiritual purification. Secondly, developing a keen insight and a mastery of the instrumental sciences or the auxiliary sciences. And the third of them is developing a comprehensive understanding of the higher objectives and purposes of the noble Sharia. And the fourth of them is the correct appropriation of the Noble Quran, i.e. using the Quranic verses and applying them in their appropriate contexts and to avoid any decontextualization or distortion. And number 5 was giving due care and importance to the affair of the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And after that, we discussed the importance of the general concern of guidance. That's guidance for all. And in today's episode, we are discussing number 7 of these distinguishing features, and that's the wholeness or the fullness of the elements of knowledge.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق.
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate. Read, in the name of your Lord who created.
As anyone who thoroughly explores and delves into and also thoroughly reads into the scholarly activities and the scholastic works of the scholars of Al-Azhar will clearly land upon the conclusion that the Azhari methodology has always maintained throughout the ages, as it was engaged and has been engaged in the process of imparting knowledge and also sharing this knowledge with its students, that knowledge is composed of 3 elements. The first of these elements is the sources or the proofs in the form of the Quran, which is a principal and number 1 source when it comes to Islamic knowledge, and also the authentic Sunnah or the statements and the deeds and the approvals of the Prophet ﷺ primarily, and also when it comes to the scholarly consensus of the Muslim scholars, and as well as the legal analogy and the legal and the independent legal reasoning. The second of these elements, my dear viewers, is the interpretive process, and that's the approved and the accepted and the rigorous process of interpretation, the religious text, and also the method of analyzing text, and the method of compiling apparently or seemingly contradictory evidence, and the method of integrating and bringing together and analyzing the sources or the pieces of evidence. And the third of these elements is the conditions or the requirements and the competences that need to be present and fulfilled, and, or if you like, that need to be met in the person becoming knowledgeable. So it is very obvious that the sources alone do not constitute knowledge or guidance unless it is accompanied by an approved and an acceptable method of interpretation and of extracting significance and rulings, which is done by an up to the level or by a qualified individual. However, my dear viewers, on the other hand, we find that, unfortunately, there are approaches that tend to tear knowledge apart and reduce it to fragments. And they show no significance of knowledge but for the word dalil, but for the word proof or evidence. But as a matter of fact, they demonstrate no importance or no significance or even no understanding of the word or the term wajh al-dilala. That's the angle of signification. That's how a particular verse or how a particular statement of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, signifies what it signifies. And why is it particularly makes the point that it's making. And to them, like I said, it is just merely a superficial understanding without any regard to or consideration to the person engaged in the interpretive process. And as it's very clear that it's very important to take into consideration the state and the condition of the person engaged in the interpretation process, and whether or not he or she, this individual, is suited for the task at hand. Also, my dear viewers, among the fullness of the elements of knowledge is the fact that its bearer has to combine within himself and be conversant with both the transmissional sciences, i.e. sciences that are primarily based on transmission on the one hand, and on the other hand, the rational sciences, i.e. the sciences that are primarily based on reason and intellect. So that the proponent or the practitioner of this methodology is in a position to comprehend and understand and be able to interact with different and variant epistemological methods that constitute and that shape the current global knowledge. And this is why we could see that the Muslim scholars who practiced and who put into practice this approach, they were able to show that they were people who are fully aware of the requirements of their age, but they never seem to be ostracized or isolated from what is going on around them. And this is why the people accepted and embraced their scholarly activities and their scholarly outcomes. This was a very important critical feature of the Azhari approach, and that's the fullness or the wholeness of the elements of knowledge. That's it for today's episode. Inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the next one, we will be talking and speaking of the last of these characteristics. Always remember, never wait for anyone to enter your life to make it special. Rather, you do jihad, do your best to be the one who enters people's lives, turn them magical and special. You can watch this episode and the previous ones on the official Facebook page and the rest of the social media. And also, you are most welcome to send us your feedback and your suggestions and your comments. Until then, I leave you in the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wishing you all the best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.